Explosive. 28 provinces rise up to challenge Beijing's authority. We begin today's broadcast with a startling revelation from commentator Lao Deng. According to his report, shocking news has erupted from Beijing's political core, sending tremors throughout the entire system. Vice governors and top officials from 28 provinces, cities, and municipalities have jointly submitted a petition to the National People's Congress, an act so aggressive and unprecedented that it has no parallel in the history of the Chinese Communist Party. These local governments weren't submitting routine reports. They were, in effect, issuing a direct threat to the central leadership. Their demands are crystal clear. The first is the immediate implementation of a nationwide property tax targeting what remains of China's middle-class wealth. With land sales drying up, investments collapsing, foreign assets shrinking, and the private sector in freefall, local government coffers have run empty. Desperate for revenue, they've now turned their gaze toward ordinary homeowners. Regardless of income or employment, every resident would be required to pay an annual property tax, one that is both permanent and unavoidable. The meaning behind this is devastating. The middle class has effectively been declared bankrupt. The accumulated wealth of years of economic growth will be forcibly drained back into government hands. Local authorities, struggling to survive, are now resorting to squeezing their own citizens. The second demand is even more alarming: the reinstatement of the agricultural tax, which would force 300 million farmers back into a system abolished nearly 2 decades ago. It's worth remembering that this tax was scrapped in 2006 because it had crushed farmers, fueled deep resentment, and triggered large-scale tax revolts in Yangshi, a coastal county in southwestern Guangdong province, marking a pivotal moment in China's rural reform. But today, under immense financial pressure and unable even to pay basic wages, local governments are seeking to revive this heavy burden. The timing could not be worse. Over 300 million migrant workers, recently driven out of cities by widespread unemployment, have returned to their hometowns. They are already struggling to make ends meet. If the agricultural tax is reinstated, it won't merely be taxation. It will be the spark that pushes them toward open revolt. Observers point out that these 28 provinces fully understand the consequences, but they have no other path forward. This is not a matter of poor judgment, it's a matter of survival. With no money left to attract investment, businesses wiped out, the real estate market in ruins, foreign capital fleeing, and the broader economy collapsing, local officials have only 2 resources left to exploit: the homes of city residents and the land of rural farmers. It's a classic symptom of a nation at its financial breaking point, when a government turns inward to plunder its own people. The result could be catastrophic. 300 million displaced workers, together with tens of millions of middle-class homeowners, are being pushed to the brink. When the lower class can no longer live and the middle class is erased, the very foundation of society begins to collapse. Ordinary people struggle to survive, the persecuted rise in protest, and the government, instead of offering relief, continues its exploitation. China is entering a vicious cycle. And now, these 28 local governments are pleading with the National People's Congress and the central authorities for urgent rescue. Lao Deng drew a sharp metaphor from the classic film The Godfather. Even Don Corleone's family, a powerful, once dominant mafia clan and one of the most influential in America, had run out of money. And now it seems, so has the central government. At this point, it's every man for himself. Before we move on, I just want to share something real quick. YouTube hasn't been recommending our channel much lately, so if you've made it this far, drop this icon in the comments. It really helps us beat the algorithm. You can also find it in the description below if you want to copy it easily. Together, we can get past the censorship and let more people see the truth. Party media leak: Xi Jinping pushes China's economy 40 years back in just 7 years. As 2025 draws to a close, China's economic story has shifted from slowing growth to something far darker: a systemic, structural, and long-term collapse. Analysts around the world now describe the situation as the permanent end of the miracle, a 40-year regression, and a complete breakdown of trust. The real estate death spiral. According to the Vision Times, the housing sector, once the backbone of China's wealth, is now the epicenter of the meltdown. US-based economist Dr. Cheng Xiaonong said, "People think Chinese citizens are rich because they own homes," says, "but those homes are now worth less than their debt." Since 2021, property prices have plunged far beyond the government's claimed 20% decline. In parts of Beijing, homes now sell for only 30 to 40% of their 2016-2017 value. Some have crashed to as low as 5%. In Shanghai, prices have been cut in half. Families who bought homes at peak prices are now underwater, owing far more than their properties are worth. Many have simply stopped paying their mortgages altogether, a move economists call strategic default. But this has set off a devastating chain reaction. When people stop paying, banks are left with piles of bad loans. That weakens local governments, which then run out of money to finish construction projects. As more buildings are abandoned, housing prices fall even further, trapping the entire market in a downward spiral with no end in sight. Goldman Sachs forecasts new home demand will fall 75% below the 2017 peak within 2 years. Cheng warns, if prices fall for another 5 to 8 years, China's economy will plunge into an abyss. Mass layoffs and pay cuts sweep the nation. Across every sector, tech, manufacturing, services, and even government, pay cuts and layoffs have become routine. Cheng says, people live with constant fear. After today, who knows what tomorrow brings? In Shenzhen's Longhua and Longgang districts, once home to 8 million factory workers, gates are locked and weeds overrun abandoned plants. Foxconn's Longhua factory alone dismissed over 10,000 workers in April. With no severance pay or benefits, many instantly became homeless, a sight unimaginable just 5 years ago. 50 million graduates without jobs. China stopped releasing youth unemployment data, but independent estimates paint a grim picture. Of 120 million college graduates in the past decade, at least 50 million remain chronically jobless, some for as long as 10 years. Meanwhile, over 100 million migrant workers have been forced to return to the countryside, not for better opportunities, but because cities offer none. Living off parents' pensions and draining their last savings has become the new normal for millions of returning youths and displaced middle-aged workers. Xinhua News Agency reveals the truth: China's economy is regressing 40 years in entirety. A stunning revelation came from within state media itself. Former entrepreneur Hu Liren analyzed a November 24 Xinhua article praising county economies and township enterprises. His conclusion: China is retreating from urbanization, globalization, and innovation, back to the economic model of the 1980s. He notes that the entire 40-year arc of China's rise, from rural industry to global manufacturing power, has been reversed in just 7 years. Foreign investors fleeing to Vietnam, India, and Mexico. Core supply chains like TSMC and ASML cutting all ties with China. Private businesses collapsing as entrepreneurs emigrate. Millions of migrant workers returning home. Proof that the economic thermometer has hit zero. Hu warns 40 years of progress have been erased. In 1978, China was full of hope. Today, it's full of fear. The three-trust crisis returns. Cheng compares today's mood to the final years of Mao's rule, marked by 3 collapsing pillars: faith in ideology, hollow and no longer believed; trust in government, crushed under surveillance and fear; confidence in the future, replaced by a belief that tomorrow will only be worse. Cheng says, even with bank rates at 1%, people still won't spend. This isn't about liquidity, it's the total collapse of confidence. Beijing's toolbox is empty. Interest rate cuts, special bonds, housing programs, consumer vouchers, auto subsidies, every possible policy has been deployed. Yet, says Cheng, those with money don't spend, those who could invest won't. State-owned sectors are downsizing, private firms are closing, and unemployment benefits are drying up. Cheng calls this the fusion of two traps: Japan-style stagnation, and a Latin American middle-income trap, only worse, because China's decline began before it exhausted its demographic advantage and without a real market system. Politics over economics. Hu Liren identifies the deeper cause. Politics overriding economics. Wolf warrior diplomacy destroyed global trust. State over private enterprise crushed innovation. Zero COVID, heavy industry, and common prosperity drove capital away. Ideology replaced the market, loyalty replaced efficiency, political security replaced economic security. Hu concludes, a nation cut off from the world can only spin in circles, and at the end of that circle lies the county economy. The winter deepens. Both Chen and Hu share the same bleak forecast. The Chinese economic miracle is permanently over. Chen warns, prepare for long stagnation, or worse. China isn't moving toward the future, Hu adds. It's walking backward into the past. As the winter of 2025 sets in, China's economic ship is still sinking. State media continues to project images of prosperity and celebration, but beneath the surface, a deep sense of despair has taken hold among ordinary citizens, an overwhelming belief that tomorrow will only be worse than today. From the real estate death spiral and the collapse of industrial supply chains, to mass unemployment among both the young and the middle-aged, and the spreading three-trust crisis, every sign now points to the same grim reality. China has entered a systemic, long-term, and irreversible economic decline. Xi Yuanping's sister-in-law implicated in the deadly Hong Kong blaze? As we close today's program, here's the latest on the catastrophic fire at Hong Fook Court in Tai Po, Hong Kong, now entering its third day. As of November 28th, the death toll has climbed to 128, with around 200 people still missing. The blaze has been brought under control, but firefighters remain on site, combing through the wreckage for victims and survivors. Authorities warn that the final toll could rise even higher. On that same day, most major Hong Kong newspapers turned their front pages black, a solemn gesture of mourning for those who perished. Meanwhile, the Hong Kong Independent Commission Against Corruption, ICAC, confirmed the arrest of 8 individuals linked to the disaster. Those detained, 7 men and 1 woman, include project consultants, scaffolding subcontractors, and intermediaries involved in the building's renovation. The suspects, aged between 40 and 63, include 2 directors and 2 project managers from the consulting firm overseeing the project, along with 3 subcontractors and 1 middleman now under investigation. Adding to that, overseas commentators have revealed that the construction company from Binzhou, Shandong, which supplied the fake, green fireproof nets used in the renovation at Hong Fook Court covered in our previous episode, has a sole shareholder named Zhang Shanshan. New reports now claim that Zhang Shanshan is the biological younger sister of Zhang Lanlan, the wife of Xi Yuanping, who is the younger brother of Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping. Dear viewers, it appears this tragic Hong Kong fire is now sending political shockwaves all the way to the Xi family in Beijing. With investigators uncovering mounting evidence of corruption, bribery, and falsified documents, the world is watching closely to see what unfolds next in this rapidly escalating story. CCP brainwashing schoolchildren in the Yu Menglong case. Outrage erupts across China. And now a striking new twist in the Yu Menglong case. The Chinese Communist Party has begun inserting the case into junior high school exams, in what many see as a blatant attempt to indoctrinate mainland students. According to the Vision Times, on November 24th, netizens discovered that a moral and law midterm exam for 8th graders in Fujian province included a multiple-choice question that read, "Recently, a man surnamed Yu, aged 37, died from a fall due to an accident. Certain individuals, out of rumor-mongering and fabrication, spread false information online, edited and created fake videos, and seriously disrupted public order." The public security authorities filed a case and took action in order to. Students were then asked to choose from 4 official-sounding answers, including phrases such as, "create a clean and bright cyberspace," and "eliminate harmful online information and culture." Although Yu Menglong's name wasn't stated directly, Once the exam paper circulated online, people immediately linked the question to him. Commentator Yu, on his November 26 program, criticized the exam, calling it meaningless and intentionally manipulative. A political trap designed to force students to take sides and express loyalty. He argued that the question not only further defames Yu Menglong, but also shows that the CCP is willing to target the minds of underage students in order to bury the truth. This revelation triggered instant outrage across mainland social media. Comments poured in, with most people pointing out that this is yet another textbook brainwashing tactic from the Chinese Communist Party. It echoes the same indoctrination playbook used in July 1999 when the CCP launched its persecution of Falun Gong practitioners. At that time, students were required to select exam answers branding Falun Gong, a peaceful spiritual practice credited with helping tens of millions of Chinese people improve their health and moral character, as an evil cult. And it didn't stop there. Since 1999, students have been made to attend anti-cult education classes, watch propaganda films, and sign pledges denouncing Falun Gong. Friends of Falun Gong reports that in 2019, students were even summoned to interviews at local party committees to assess their political attitudes, and anyone who refused to condemn Falun Gong risked being marked in their personal records. Is there any other government on earth capable of such evil? And yet, the darker this regime behaves, the more it exposes its own weakness and fear. It knows all of its crimes, so all it can do is cover them up again and again. That's why I believe this. Every effort to reveal the truth matters. Nothing we do is in vain. Every step we take makes the CCP more uneasy and more afraid. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. And don't forget to drop this icon in the comments to help us beat the YouTube algorithm. If you found this analysis valuable, please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss future updates. Thanks for watching. See you next time.